What is up guys, how you doing? It's Jack here, back with another video. In this video, I'm going to be answering some of your questions. So many people, I've just all of a sudden had an influx of questions from people just about all different types of things within property investing and my experience with different things. And so what I thought I'd do is just a video dedicated to answering a few of the questions that people are asking me, because sometimes it's quite hard to just type back in a DM or in a comment to just type back an answer to something that's a bit longer of an answer than just a quick message. So what I thought I'd do is just do this quick video to just answer a few of these questions. I'm thinking about doing a few of these videos, so if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below and I will make sure that I answer them in the next Q&A video that I do. But without further ado, let's get into the questions. So Hero asked, how do you find builders in the areas you're looking for? Do you have a set team or do you ask around locally? So personally, I've used my mentor who's helped me with my current refurb. I'm very local to him and he has his own build team, and he's been really generous in letting them come in and help me with the flip project that I've got going on. What I would do is, if I was doing something further afield, I would speak to a estate agent or a letting agent and decide, are you going to keep the property and rent it out, or are you going to sell the property? If you're going to sell it, go to an estate agent, or if you're going to rent it out, go to the lettings agent and just say to them, look, I've got a property, I'm looking at refurbing it, doing some work on it, and then I'm going to be selling it or renting it out, depending on who you're speaking to and what your plan is. And I'd love to do that through you guys. Who would you recommend to do some of the building work, or who would you recommend to do some of the refurb? They will often have a few people on their books because they will have properties that they will be renting out, and they'll know people in the area, they'll have contacts in the area who will be able to do kind of maintenance on their properties that they let. And so they'll have a few different contacts in the area, and if you can get a word in from them, maybe they'll give you a good discount. That's what I personally do, but again, I haven't had the experience of that just yet. But if I do that, I'll let you know. But yeah, I've just used local contractors and just asked around, looked on things like Check a Trade, things like that, just to make sure that you're getting good quality people that are highly recommended. And as well, just use friends and family. Everybody, you'll know somebody who has used builders before, and if anybody you know recommends people, then it's good to start there, I guess. Keegs has asked me, what was your light bulb moment when you knew this was what you wanted to do? What enticed you to get into property investing? Okay, so I was interested in property investing. It started really small scale, okay? Because when I first started looking into property, I had no idea about property whatsoever. I didn't know really properly what a mortgage was, how they worked, how to get one. I didn't understand anything to do with refurbs or anything like that. I knew nothing, okay? However, what I initially thought was, I have some money and I would love to invest it into something like a property. Now, because I knew, I'd heard that was a good thing to do. I didn't really think anything of it in terms of making profit, but the way I thought of it was, I don't know where I want to live yet, and so I don't know where I would like to buy a house. However, until I want to buy a house, how about I buy like a flat or something like that, and then I will get a mortgage on that, a repayment mortgage, and then I'll get a tenant and I'll rent it out, and that means that somebody will be paying off my mortgage. The rent that I get from them will be paying off the mortgage. That's about as large scale as I thought initially, and that's what made me go, oh, that's an amazing idea. I can have somebody starting to pay off my mortgage before I even move into the house. That was kind of what I initially started to think, and then I started looking online, started researching and realising that this actually is something that could be incredibly profitable and could really help to build up wealth in the long run. And the more I looked into it, the more excited I got. But I suppose in terms of an aha moment, I guess you could call it, I realised actually property would be a great investment was when, as small as it seems, I realised that somebody's rent could be paying off a mortgage on a house. I didn't really think about the capital appreciation. I didn't think about rental profit or anything like that. I literally just thought somebody could pay off my mortgage and I don't have to move in the house. But that was the initial moment for me, and that's what sparked me to start looking into property and to start researching a bit more. And it was then, as I researched it a bit further, that I started to realise this is not just to pay off a mortgage. This actually could be a huge scale thing. James Wright says, do you do rent to rent? Okay, so I don't do rent to rent personally, and I don't recommend it. I've spent months and months looking into rent to rent. So for people who don't understand, rent to rent is basically where you rent a property from a landlord and then rent it out in a different way to make a profit. So I could rent a 5-bedroom house off of somebody, turn it into an HMO, house of multiple occupancy, and then rent out each room individually, keep the profit and then pay off the landlord. Or I could rent an apartment in Birmingham city centre from a landlord on a single let, and then on a corporate agreement, and I would then rent that out on a night-by-night basis and list it on things like Booking.com, Airbnb, things like that, and then again keep the profit, pay the landlord off. I looked into that a lot, and I had deals lined up, ready to go. I spent money on getting contracts drawn up, and I pulled out of them because I realised that unless you manage them yourself, it's very, very hard to make a decent profit on rent to rents. And I didn't have the time or the capacity to be managing a rent to rent serviced accommodation or a HMO business. Now, I don't recommend it for people who want to start investing in property, but if people want to use property to start a business, yeah, you could do it. I personally wouldn't. That's my thoughts. Maybe I can do a video that's a bit more in depth about that later on, but I don't do rent to rent and I wouldn't really recommend it. But if anyone's doing it successfully, let me know. Drop it in the comments and I'd love to have a chat and find out a bit more about it then, because maybe I didn't look into it enough. But I wouldn't recommend it. Hannah Charlton says, what is your investment strategy? So currently my investment strategy is to build up a big pot of cash. The issue that I have is that if I was to start buying houses now, multiple houses, it wouldn't take many houses for me to suddenly run out of money, and then that's me done. I'm stopped dead in my tracks and I can't move on much further. What I would like to do is build up a huge pot of cash where I can start buying houses outright, which would just mean that I can do things a lot quicker, more efficiently. So flipping houses is my strategy. I've had a few people say to me, why don't you do buy, refurb, refinance? And there are a number of different things around that to do with stamp duty, for example. I'd have to pay more stamp duty every time I buy a house. Yes, there's things like you saving on capital gains tax. But what I realised was if I was to do a flip and I made £25,000 profit, and then obviously I pay my capital gains tax, I get, say like I walk away with £20,000 profit. Okay, if I was to buy a house, do it up, refinance it, and even if I was really lucky and did a good job and pulled out all my money, it would take on average about 6 to 7 years of rental profit to make that same £20,000. So in terms of like building up a pot of cash and moving fast to grow a portfolio, I personally think that flipping is the best way forward. For me, in my personal situation, you might be different. I don't know what your circumstances are, but that's my strategy. Thanks for the question, Hannah. Also, if you find this information helpful, please make sure that you click the subscribe button. It'd be really helpful. Click the subscribe button and the bell notification just so you don't miss an upload. It would just mean so much to me, just to become part of the family, to keep up to date with what I'm doing. And you'll be able to stay up to date with this information that I'm giving you as well. Hopefully you find it valuable. But yeah, if you are, click the subscribe button and on to the next question. Minty Pig says, what are the negatives? Obviously, they haven't put you off, but I think people assume that once you buy a property, it's job done, but I'm sure it's a lot of work and not all roses. Thanks for the question, Minty Pig. I would agree. A lot of people promote that property is a really simple, passive thing that you can do. You just buy a house or buy a couple of houses and you're financially free and you never have to work again and it's hands off and you never have to do any work. That's not the case. It's not the case for me. My property investing is very, very active in that I'm constantly looking for new deals. I'm constantly trying to, refurb properties, sell property. Like that's what I'm going to be doing. It's going to be a very active property investment strategy. I suppose the negatives would be, one, if you're not educated on it, if you don't know what you're doing, then it is risky. I wouldn't personally say that it's a very risky game, as long as you know your numbers, as long as you know what you're talking about and you know the market, then I don't think it's that risky. If you don't get educated, then I do think it's very risky. So I suppose there's a risk factor involved. It involves quite a bit of capital to get started. A lot of people teach these no money down deals and that kind of thing. That doesn't really exist. Money is always needed if you want to make money in property. How much is questionable. People agree and disagree around that, but you do need property. I suppose one of the negatives of property is that it's missold. I think a lot of people think that, or people promote that it's really passive, it's really easy, it's really simple, and to an extent they're right, it can be more than some people would think, but actually I think we've gone too far the other way, and we're now, a lot of people are promoting that it's this really simple, easy, passive thing, and people think that they can get into it and make loads of money without any effort. That's not the case. You have to work, and you have to work hard, just like you would with any business. And I suppose the other negative is that it takes longer than people think. It's not a get rich quick, it's not a quick fix to your financial problems or struggles or difficulties. Like, I really want to emphasize that. If you have financial struggles, I don't recommend getting into property. Again, it's something that's taught out there that it's this quick fix, get rich quick scheme, and it isn't. It's a long term, it's a long game thing. If you want to do it right, if you want to do it well, and you want to build it up safely and not run a load of risks, then it takes a long time, and it's a slow game. It's not something where you can just quit your job next week and get started in property. And yeah, it's that's my opinion. That would be a negative. Other than that, I can't really think of many other negatives. A lot of it is around how people promote it. I think, yeah, again, it's just, I think the reason why I would say there's negatives is because people told me it was something that it isn't. Whilst I think it's an incredible vehicle to make money, and it's a really wise thing to do, actually, to help your money make you more money. Whilst there's a lot of positives, I do think that the way it's sometimes taught isn't the reality. So I suppose any negatives that I would say around property would be around that actually people have missold it or presented it in a way that it actually isn't. Hussein says, how did you find your mentor? How can I find someone who I can pay to teach me? Okay, I've had some experience with mentors. I am going to talk about this a little bit, because I've had quite a bit of experience with property mentors and gurus and that kind of thing, and I feel like I can talk about this. How did I find my mentor? My current mentor, he went to the same church as me, and a few people said, oh, I know you're interested in property, Jack. How about you go and speak to this guy called Nick, who's also in property? And I was like, oh, okay, great, that sounds good. Went over and chatted with him. I spent hours and hours talking to him one evening. I went round to his house. I went round for a cup of tea and ended up staying for hours. And he just started to teach me about property, and I was like, this is just incredible. Like, the way that you teach is brilliant, and I'm learning so much. And I asked him if he could mentor me. He said yes, and the rest is history, really. I've learned loads since then. However, before that, I had spent a good few months on a different training program. I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but I had spent some time on a different mentoring program, which turned out to not be what it was advertised to be at all. I'd spent money on it. I actually invested some money, because in my head, and this should be how it works, in my head I thought, if I can spend money to lower the risk, if I go into a property deal and I don't know what I'm doing, like I said before, I don't get educated, and I do something and I lose all my money, then that's not going to be good. So if I can pay a bit of money to get trained and learn about that, then that will reduce the risk of getting it wrong. That was my thought process, and that's why I did it. And I definitely think that's the right thought process. I think the way that I thought was good. The issue was that what was sold to me was not the reality. And so all I would say is, yes, I'm 100% behind training and mentoring, and I fully believe that you need to educate yourself on any type of business venture or investment that you want to do, whether it's stocks, whether you want to start an e-commerce business, whether you want to invest in property, whatever it is, you need to get educated, because otherwise you can lose a lot of money. However, from a bit of my own experience, but also from hearing from other people, a lot of the time it ends up not being what it is sold to be. So I just want to say that out. I just want to put that out there, to just be careful, to really look into the person who's going to be mentoring you, and make sure that what they are selling is actually what the reality is of that particular program or mentorship. But yeah, I met my mentor. His name's Nick Elsmore, and he's absolutely insane. Like I've learned so much from him. And realistically, I actually went out for a curry with him the other day, and we were sat there having a curry, and I said to him, I said, to be honest, Nick, if it wasn't for you, I don't think I'd have taken the leap to get into it properly. I was really invested into it, and I understood the concepts, but actually going and buying a house was really scary for me, and I don't think I would have taken the leap without his investment, without his teaching, without his training, and really just holding my hand through the whole process. So yeah, mentors can be so valuable and worth they're worth their weight in gold. If you get the right mentor, then what you spend you will make back times 20 in the long run. So it's definitely worth it. But again, I just come back to choose that person really wisely, choose them really well, and be careful. Make sure you do your research. Okay, and Abdul Majid 13 says, book suggestions. What books would I suggest? I mean, if you're interested in property, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki is such a good book in terms of that. In fact, Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad Poor Dad and the Cash Flow Quadrant, those two books. I'm currently towards the end of the Cash Flow Quadrant, but I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad a couple of times, and it's just amazing in terms of learning how to change your mindset. I think we're taught and programmed and conditioned to think a certain way about money and think a certain way about saving and investing and all that kind of thing. But he helps you to, in this book, to just rethink how you view things like that. And it's just an amazing book. I'd really recommend that. Yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad and the Cash Flow Quadrant. Any other books? Think and Grow Rich by what's his name? Napoleon Hill. Think and Grow Rich. Yeah, it's an amazing book. Again, these books are about mindset and changing the way that you think. Somebody was asking me the other day, can you recommend any books to teach me about the housing market? And I was like, well, I can, but there's no book out there that's teaching you about the housing market right now. So it will teach you about how to look at it and how to view it, but you have to kind of do your own current research on what the housing market is doing right now. What if you read a book about the housing market in 2008, it won't tell you what the housing market is like now. It'll give you maybe some clues and indicators of what to look for, but it won't teach you about now. So you need to make sure that you're looking at things that are present, that are up to date. Like I said, you could get a mentor who knows what they're talking about. You could just look online at other different types of resources and information to give you an idea of what the market's doing. But yeah, those three books, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, and the Cash Flow Quadrant, great books. I'd highly recommend them. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, if you found it really helpful, then please make sure that you click the subscribe button, click the thumbs up. It just really supports me to know that people are subscribing, becoming part of the family, and journeying with me on this investment journey and keeping up to date with what I'm doing. If you have any questions, again, just drop them in the comments below. I'll answer them in another video if it's a bit more in detail. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.